Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, herzlich willkommen, Bruchim Mabaim, and a warm welcome to all of you. Bini Altstein from the Volcani Centre, Barbara Seimetz from the German Embassy in Tel Aviv, and I welcome you to our expert discussion on agricultural innovation and adaptation to climate change. We are especially honored to be joined by Germany's Federal Minister of Food and Agriculture, Julia Klöckner, Israel's Minister of Agriculture, Alon Schuster, Germany's Ambassador to Israel, Dr. Susanne Wasum-Reiner, and Israel's Ambassador to Germany, Jeremy Sakharov. We are streaming this exciting event live from Israel. And without further ado, I'm happy to introduce you to our moderator of the event, the wonderful Hagit Schwimmer from the Israel Innovation Authority. Hagit, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Andrea. It's great to be here. Good afternoon, everybody. Shalom, guten tag, all of you. So my name is Hagit Schwimmer. I'm from ISER, the Israel-Europe Directorate in the Innovation Authority. We work on the European Framework Program for Science and Innovation, Horizon 2020, to be followed by Horizon Europe. And I'm in charge, among others, on the fields of environment, energy, and agriculture. Our daily job is to encourage collaborations in science, research, and innovation. So I'm very happy to host this event today, especially because of my current involvement in working on the European Green Deal, the program that promotes, with 20 call for proposals, now open for submission, better environment, cleaner, more sustainable, climate neutrality, better and healthier food, circular economy, and preservation of biodiversity. In all these topics, there's a crucial need for collaboration between experts and entities from different countries. I also represent here PRIMA program, promoting research and innovation in the Mediterranean area. Both Israel and Germany are member states in this program that promote science and innovation in water management, farming, and food. And collaboration between these two countries is definitely encouraged. Other platforms for collaboration between Germany and Israel, like DEFG, binational collaboration programs of MOST and BMBF, and others, all these are excellent opportunities for collaboration between two partners and to be expanded into broad consortia, to be submitted to the Green Deal and other Horizon call for proposals. So this event is filled with a great mix of greetings, scientific presentations, and most importantly, a declaration of collaboration between Volcani and two research centers of the Helmholtz Association, Germany's largest scientific organization. In fact, Helmholtz believes so strongly in German-Israeli research cooperation that they decided to open an Israel office in Tel Aviv 2 years ago, and we really appreciate that. So I'm honored to moderate this event today, which will be kicked off with greetings from our guests of honor, who Andrea already mentioned, followed by contributions from Helmholtz and Volcani before leading scientists from all three institutes. We'll dive deeper into the collaborative research topics. After the expert keynotes, there will be time for a quick round of question and answers if time permits. So we would ask you to share your questions for the scientists in the chat box, which you can find on the bottom of the screen. So let's get things started. So I would like to introduce you our first guest of honor, Julia Klöckner, Germany's Federal Minister of Food and Agriculture, who unfortunately can't be with us in person today and delivered a greeting. We will hear the English translation of that. So please.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you all very warmly to our digital workshop. Our ministries have been working together closely and effectively for many years. I'm referring to our bilateral agricultural research cooperation in particular. The German-Israeli Intergovernmental Agreement on Cooperation in the area of research on agriculture and nutrition has been in force since 2012. This research cooperation has the potential to develop joint solutions for climate-smart, and resource-conserving agricultural sector that also makes use of state-of-the-art digital technologies. Yet, what exactly does digitalization in agriculture mean? It means that we can work more accurately and more efficiently. For example, by using agricultural machinery that spreads seed, fertilizer, and plant protection products with satellite-based steering systems. Both the Israeli and the German agricultural sector are already at the forefront of innovation in many of these areas. What is crucial about digitalization, in my opinion, is that we always keep in mind the actual benefits. For this, we need knowledge and facts. This year, a total of almost €1 billion earmarked for expenditure in the fields of sustainability, research, and innovation is at our disposal. That is the fourth largest budget of all federal ministries allocated to science, research, and development. In the years to come, we will provide funding for a number of research projects relating to digitalization. For the next 3 years, a total of €50 million has been set aside for digital trial fields alone. Because we want to test digital technologies on site, in practice, to find out how they can best be applied, to protect the environment, improve animal welfare, conserve biodiversity, and reduce workloads. And how they can, at the same time, help us save money. As an example, I have brought you a short video which you're going to watch in a minute. Startups also play a decisive role for us today. The proportion of startups participating in our innovation program has significantly increased over the last few years. This is an important signal. We need startups not only in metropolitan areas, but also in places where the agri-food industry has its roots. I am delighted that you have come together today to engage in a constructive exchange. This dialogue on the best ideas should be a firm link between our two countries, allowing us to identify and bring together Israelis and Germany's strength. I wish you all an interesting and successful conference. Thank you very much.
Ja, hier haben wir einen deutlichen Befall. Pflanzenkrankheiten bedrohen die Erträge auf dem Feld. Es kommt aber auch dazu, dass Schädlinge vermehrt auftreten. Teilweise Schädlinge, für die noch gar keine Bekämpfungslösungen auch vorhanden sind. Und damit fehlen dem Landwirt auch Werkzeuge, um seine Pflanzen zu schützen. In unserem digitalen Experimentierfeld Pharma-Space beschäftigen wir uns mit Technologien, die dazu dienen sollen, Krankheiten zu erkennen zum richtigen Zeitpunkt an der Stelle im Feld, um dem Landwirt Werkzeuge an Hand zu geben, um zum Beispiel eine teilflächenspezifische Behandlung durchzuführen und damit effizient eine Krankheit zu kontrollieren, aber auch Pflanzenschutzmittel zu reduzieren. Wir arbeiten mit unterschiedlichen Sensoren im Projekt. Einmal Temperatursensoren, die das Mikroklima des Bestandes erfassen, also Temperatur und Blattfeuchte zum Beispiel oder auch Bodentemperatur und Bodennässe. Und dann arbeiten wir mit Kameras, die Aufnahmen machen von den Feldern, zum Beispiel im thermischen Bereich und damit die Temperatur messen können oder die nicht nur im sichtbaren Bereich, sondern auch im Nahinfrarotbereich Informationen über die Pflanzen erkennen können, die dann wieder mit dem Auftreten von Stress und von Pflanzenkrankheiten eng verbunden sind.
Wir liefern IoT-Sensoren, die in der Lage sind, die Temperaturen und Feuchten im Pflanzenbestand, in Weizen, in Zuckerrübe und auch im Boden in unterschiedlichen Tiefen zu erfassen. Dadurch werden ganz neue Datengenauigkeiten erreicht. Wir bekommen jeden Tag alle 10 Minuten Temperatur und Feuchte. Und das hilft den Forschern, genau zu sagen, wann infiziert eine Krankheit, an welcher Stelle und was muss der Landwirt machen, um diese Krankheit einzudämmen.
Reinzoomen und uns genau die Unterschiede anschauen. Wenn wir in der Lage sind, mit solchen Technologien frühzeitig einen auftretenden Befall zu erkennen, dann kann die Pflanzenschutzmaßnahme zum richtigen Zeitpunkt durchgeführt werden und auch lokal in dem Bereich, wo es notwendig ist. Das kann also dazu führen, dass wir zukünftig nicht mehr das ganze Feld behandeln müssen, sondern sehr lokal und sehr präzise erste Befallsherde eindämmen können durch unterschiedliche Maßnahmen, auch zum Beispiel mechanische Maßnahmen, die hier dann zukünftig auch denkbar sind.
Thank you, Minister. Our next speaker is the Israeli Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Mr. Alon Shuster, please.
Thank you. Dear Minister Klöckner, honorable ambassadors and director general, distinguished researchers and guests. I'm very pleased to welcome all of you today, although I wish we could host this conference physically here in the Agricultural Center among fields, orchards, greenhouses, and laboratories, as I imagined it while answering your friendly and constructive letter, Minister Klöckner. Your proposal to revive the high-level discussion between our ministries reflected our long-standing bilateral cooperation in the field of agriculture and was highly appreciated. George Bernard Shaw said once, if you have an apple and I have an apple, and we exchange these apples, then you and I will still each have one apple. But if you have an idea and I have an idea and we exchange these ideas, then each of us will have two ideas. I truly believe in it. The German-Israeli joint researchers have already proven their ingenuity, and I hope that they will continue to do so, expanding the fields of cooperation for the benefit of our people and the entire world. Food security is a critical concern nowadays, especially with the COVID-19 pandemic, and will become even more crucial in the future as the global population increases and natural resources dwindle. At the same time, there are challenging environmental issues, and we have to look at agriculture with a holistic approach from farm to fork. Smart solutions for more efficient farming, sturdy crops, alternative sources of nutrition, and safer food packaging and storage are essential by improving all aspects of supply chain, bringing better seeds, using less chemicals, new growing methods, improved packaging system, new methods of marketing fresh produce. The entire sector will use environmental friendly practices to bring fresher, more nutritious and better tasting products to the market. For this end, our farmers, both Israeli and German, are using advanced techniques such as precision agriculture, remote sensor, technologies for efficient water and irrigation management, robots, drones, and new varieties able to withstand stressful growing conditions. However, there is room for more research-based improvements and innovations that will take the industry a further step ahead, and we are happy for the opportunity for launching the high-level discussion aimed in finding the right directions of the Germany-Israel collaboration. In this regard, I think that an MOU could be an instrumental to enable our experts collaborate more comfortably. I agreed our teams can start exchanging drafts at their convenience. Knowing the professionalism at Volcani Centre and impressed by the excellence of the German research centers, especially Helmholtz Centre, I am sure that this conference will be a very fruitful and enjoyable one, and I wish you all good health and hope to see you soon in the state of Israel. Thank you all.
Thank you, Minister. Our next speaker is Dr. Susan Wasum-Reiner, German's ambassador to Israel. Please.
Distinguished ministers for agricultural affairs from Germany and Israel, Minister Klöckner and Minister Schuster, dear Jeremy, ambassador of Israel in Germany, Jeremy Issakarov, distinguished scientists from both our countries, distinguished experts and participants in today's online discussion on agricultural innovation and adaptation to climate change. 2020 is the year when Europe and the world are facing one of the greatest challenges during our lifetime. The COVID-19 pandemic has made it clear that we are vulnerable. Our health systems, our education systems, our economies, and our democratic societies in Europe and around the world. And yet, we are aware, and we should be aware, that there are other, even bigger challenges ahead of us, challenges for which there will be no vaccine. If the international community fails to fight global warming and climate change, we will find ourselves in a very unsettled world in the years to come. But what we are learning from the current crisis is that together we can successfully overcome these challenges if we just take joint and determined action to prepare for a resilient and sustainable future. Climate protection is one of the political priorities of the European Union. In December 2019, the EU heads of state and government committed themselves to the goal of climate neutrality by 2050. The European Union has its roots in the European coal and steel community. Coal and steel were once the basis for economic growth and better living conditions. This has changed. Today, our challenge is to make our industries and societies sustainable and future-proof. The European Green Deal is our modern growth strategy for a climate neutral and resource-saving economy, and it shows us how a sustainable transformation can succeed. And agriculture plays a crucial role on our way to a climate neutral and resource-saving economy. The agricultural sector can be seen as a key instrument for implementing the Green Deal and achieving its goals. In line with the goals of the Green Deal and as a roadmap for further initiatives, the European Commission has published two concrete strategies: the biodiversity strategy to better protect ecosystems, and the farm to fork strategy to make food systems more sustainable. Under the German EU Council presidency, discussion on these strategies and on how the goals of the Green Deal can be implemented and combined with the instruments of the common agricultural policy are currently underway. Ladies and gentlemen, the Green Deal offers considerable chances, but also considerable challenges for the agricultural sector. We know that agriculture must continue to produce enough to feed a growing world population and provide it with good and healthy food, and it must do so under the conditions of climate change, with more droughts and extreme weather conditions. We also know that agriculture should not be at the expense of the environment, biodiversity, and soil fertility, or further land use. To counter these challenges and to bring about necessary change, climate change and agricultural research and innovation are essential. With its extraordinary research and innovation landscape, Israel has been and is a prime partner of Germany and European researchers and research institutions. Both Israel and Germany hold leading positions worldwide in the field of research and innovation. Cooperation under the European Framework Programme and also within our bilateral framework can help to strengthen and even to expand this position in the long term for both of our countries. Therefore, Germany supports the full association of Israel under the Horizon Europe program. Today, within the bilateral framework, the Israeli Ministry for Agriculture and Rural Development and the German Ministry for Food and Agriculture expressed their commitment to continue and further strengthen their bonds under the bilateral governmental agreement for scientific technical cooperation in the area of agriculture and nutrition. And in line with this commitment, two of our most distinguished institutions are going ahead and join forces. The Volcani Centre, Israel's most prestigious agricultural research institution, and the Helmholtz Association, Germany's largest organization for the promotion and funding of research, and two of its centers, the Research Center Jülich and the Helmholtz Center for Environmental Research, are signing MOUs with the Volcani Centre today to explore potential future cooperation. And moreover, experts from Israel and Germany have gathered in this event to exchange their knowledge and their views on agricultural innovation and adaptation to climate change. Hereby, climate change and environmental challenges are not only seen as threats, but also as what they are, opportunities. And this is, of course, a promising approach. Please let me express in conclusion my sincere gratitude to all of you who are participating in today's important expert discussion and for exploring pathways to build a better future for all of us. Thank you very much, Toda Rabba, and a lot of success for your exchange today.
Thank you, Ambassador. And our next speaker is the Israel's ambassador to Germany, Mr. Jeremy Istakharov, please.
Thank you so much. For me, it's an incredible pleasure to be able to participate in this event today, alongside with the Federal Minister of Agriculture, Food and Agriculture in Germany, Ms. Julia Glockner, and also the Minister of Agriculture of Israel, Mr. Alon Schuster. And I think it goes without saying, my colleague in Tel Aviv, Ambassador Suzanne Wazum-Reiner, is an amazing partner to have in this incredible partnership that we've developed over the last years. And I think that for me, this coming together on these issues, talking about climate change and agricultural cooperation in many different areas. Agriculture covers a lot of areas, but to me, we've had an amazing period of time where we've seen a tremendous amount of cooperation in the area of strategic exchanges between the two countries, defense cooperation, diplomatic cooperation, intelligence exchanges, mobility, startups, advanced scientific research in other areas. And to me, it was very much overdue that we should bring the cooperation in the area of agriculture and climate change onto our joint German-Israeli agenda. I think this is a really major issue of the day. And as everyone has said so far, obviously in a time of COVID and in the time of global warming, we're witnessing so many different trends that are happening in our societies that I think really need to see this combination of Germany and Israel coming together. I found it incredibly interesting in recent visits to Rhineland-Pfalz, the state in southwest Germany, and also in Thuringia just the other day. I met with the prime ministers of both states, and one of the first things they mentioned to me was the fact that the forests and woodlands in these states, in Rhineland-Pfalz, it's 43% of the land, trees, and they are suffering from an acute lack of rain, precipitation, and it's become a major issue in Germany. And I think the climate is affecting us in many ways, in many profound ways. It's affecting us in Israel, even in Israel, which is a hotter climate than Germany. We are also suffering the higher temperatures this summer that have been extremely high. And we have to find answers of how we go forward. And I think this is an amazing way that Israel and Germany can complement each other with its premier institutions, both the Helmholtz Institution on one hand, which is an amazing institution with tremendous knowledge and expertise, and obviously the Volcani Institute in Israel, whose name is really, I think, has got a very great global reputation for its expertise in all of the different areas that we're talking about. And I think that, again, this is an essential element of cooperation that Israel and Germany can put together. I think there are a lot of marvelous things that can be done. One of the things that I found works so well in the Israeli-German relationship is that we complement each other and we provide expertise in different areas that each other has. And so it's not really a competition, but it is exactly as the minister said, Minister Schuster said, it's a combination of ideas. And I'm not sure that Israel has all the answers. I'm not sure that Germany has all the answers. But one thing I'm sure about is that together and with this cooperation, we can achieve amazing goals, have a great deal of realization of our common knowledge, and achieve a very important factor in the Israeli-German relationship as a whole. So I would like to wish everyone participating in this event today the best, and I hope this is clearly the starting point of many joint and future endeavors that are absolutely essential to our common agenda. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you to all our guests of honor. I just would like to remind you, if you have any question, to use the chat box and not the Q&A. It's very important. Please use the chat box on the bottom of your screen. So I'm now happy to continue with the next part of the program, the Declaration of Collaboration. And our next speaker is Dr. Nachum Itzkovich, Director General, Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, Israel. Please.
Ministers and ambassadors, friends and colleagues, good afternoon. I feel privileged to take part in this important conference, and would like to thank the organizers for making it possible despite these challenges day. This conference reflects the great importance both of our ministers attribute to the agricultural research collaboration between Germany and Israel. I think we will all share the view that agricultural cooperation between German and Israeli researchers is the field of agriculture hold a great potential for both our research community, but also for the benefit of all of us. As mentioned by Minister Schuster, we will be happy to find practical ways to join efforts in different fields, including agricultural research. The field of interest that can be supported by Israeli and German joint activities in agricultural development dedicated to the challenge of the climate changes, especially the climate changes. Innovation is the key factor of all prosperity of both Israelis and Germans' economy and agriculture. I am looking forward to discuss ways to enhancing the existing cooperation in agriculture between Israel and Germany. I wish you all successful and interesting conference, good health, and all the best. Thank you. Shalom v'litraot.
Thank you, Dr. Itzkovich. Our next speaker is Professor Abed Gera, Acting Chief Scientist from the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, Israel. Please.
Thank you, Hagit. Honorable Minister of Agriculture, Director General and Ambassadors, distinguished guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, Shalom, Salam, and Guten Tag. I wish to express my profound gratitude to the organizers, especially Vinny, Andrea, and Barbara, for the privilege of addressing this German-Israeli binational meeting as a part of the cooperation between Helmholtz Association and the Volcani Centre. Chief Scientist Fund was established to advance, foster, and fund research carried out by Israeli researchers at the academy and research institution, The major goals are to identify agriculture challenges and problems in which knowledge gaps exist, to determine research goals aimed to bridge gaps, and to fund such research activities. We monitor research performance in order to guarantee the implementation of the outcome for the benefits of farmers, public values, and the environment. The major subjects that are currently supported and controlled by the chief scientist include topics dealing with agricultural biotechnology, animal and food production, safety and quality, irrigation and water management, post-harvest and sustainable agriculture, plant and animal health aimed at reducing the use of pesticides. We believe that the COVID-19 pandemic has underlined the importance of the robust and resilient for systems that functions in all circumstances and is capable of ensuring access to sufficient supply of affordable food for all citizens. It has also made us accurately aware of the interrelations between our health, ecosystem, supply chains, consumption patterns, and planetary boundaries. The current pandemic is just one example. The increasing recurrence of drought, forest fires, and new emerging pests are a constant reminder that our food system is under threat and must become more sustainable and resilient. Our strategy is oriented to address comprehensively the challenges of a sustainable food system and recognize the inextricable links between healthy society and a healthy planet. In the aftermath of COVID-19 pandemic and the economic downturn, a shift to sustainable food system can bring environmental health and social benefits, offer economic gain, and ensure that the recovery from the crisis put us into a sustainable path. Climate change has been shown to have a number of direct biophysical impact on agriculture, including changes in arable and perennial crop, and pasture physiology, productivity, and quality, in water demand for irrigation, and weeds, pests, and diseases, with a possible head stress effect on animal physiology, productivity, and reproduction. Biological adaptation to climate change is already taking place through natural selection, biological invasions, and emerging pests and diseases. And today, and mainly in the future, complex climatic change, demographic growth, and energy context, agricultural research must deal with the major issues on various scales to ensure food security. We are offering joining forces in promoting a multidisciplinary synergistic research collaboration between Germany and Israel. Soil and water, the natural resources that underpin agriculture production, are under continuous stress. Even every day, approximately 1,000 of dunams or hectares of land are lost from production because of urbanization, degradation, and desertification processes. Land degradation coupled with the rapid human population growth result in a significant reduction in the level of land per capita available for production. Fresh water is also scarce and insecure resources. The implications of the diminishing stocks of productive land and water are severe worldwide. The impacts of climate change are global in scope and exceptionally in scale. Adaptation to increased climatic variability may also imply an increased use of genetic diversity in our farming systems. Achieving increased adaptation will necessitate integration of climate change related issue with other factors such as market risk, energy prices, consumer habits, land and water availability, and agriculture policies. To meet future challenges, new sciences and new modes of collaboration are needed. Optimization of agriculture production will require more novelty, synergism, and multidisciplinary research efforts. I believe that in the current workshop, researchers from Israel and Germany will share their research related to adaptation to climate changes, research that addresses how plants and animals can adapt or be adapted to grow in a changing environment, agriculture under arid condition, agriculture on marginal soils, irrigation using effluent and saline water, farming under conditions of water shortage, and food security. The vast diversity of the topic in this meeting reflects the wide scope in which collaboration can potentially increase farming efficiency and support sustainability of agriculture. We anticipate a direct research collaboration between Germany and Israel in the framework of a joint binational call for proposals, a synergistic multidisciplinary research collaboration with the involvement of companies from both countries. In conclusion, I would say that agricultural innovation are key drivers in accelerating the transition to sustainable, healthy, and inclusive food systems from primary production to consumption. Research and innovation can help develop and test solutions, overcome barriers, and uncover new market opportunities. New knowledge and innovation will also scale up agroecological approaches in primary production through a dedicated partnership between Germany and Israel on agroecology living laboratories. This will contribute to reducing the use of pesticides in agriculture, fertilizers, and antimicrobials, speed up innovation, and accelerate knowledge transfer. I wish you all a successful and enjoyable meeting with a lot of good sense and some fun. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Gera. So many options for collaboration and indeed a lot of fun. Our next speaker is Albert Wolf, Head of Directorate Research, Federal Ministry of Food and Agriculture, Germany. Please.
Honorable ministers, ambassadors, and presidents of the participating research institutions, ladies and gentlemen. In my capacity as the head of Directorate Research at the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, I would like to warmly welcome you to this digital workshop and thank you very much for the invitation. My minister, Ms. Klöckner, already mentioned how well Germany and Israel have cooperated over the years. In particular, she underlined the important role of our bilateral agricultural research cooperation, which was initiated as a result of our bilateral intergovernmental agreement of 2012. Israel is the only country with which we have concluded this kind of agreement of agricultural research cooperation. So I think it is fair to say that Germany and Israel enjoy a special relationship in the field of joint agricultural research. 4 research projects have been jointly supported. They have proven that our cooperation can be a great asset when we pool our expertise and facilitate mutual discussions between partners from different geographical regions. Not only is this cooperation beneficial for both of our countries, but also for the agricultural sector as a whole. The solutions that have been developed together will be key in realizing a resilient, climate-adapted, resource-friendly agricultural sector. Several of the research institutions present here today have played an important role in finding these solutions, from the German side as well as from the Israeli side. The work of research institutions which belong to the Federal Ministry of Food and Agriculture has been particularly significant. A large portion of our research budget is spent on these institutes. These are the ministry's research institutes and further institutes associated with our ministry. My minister already pointed out how much money we spend on research every year. The institutes provide the scientific basis from which political decisions can be made within the ministry, and they are also well integrated within national and international scientific networks. Prior to today's event, we spoke with our departmental research institutes, and together we identified topics which could be of interest for future bilateral cooperation between Germany and Israel. These topics could include plant protection or how to improve stress adaptation of our crops in light of climate change. The topic of climate change adaptation is also very important here in Germany. As Ambassador Issacharow already mentioned, especially the past 2 years have shown us how vulnerable German agriculture sector is when there are water shortages and shifts in growing seasons. Israel, of course, has much longer experience in this field and has achieved important progress, for example, in the efficiency of irrigation systems. I'm therefore pleased that the focus of today's workshop is climate change adaptations. I'm also glad that we are joined today by representatives from the Julius Kühn Institute, the Federal Research Institute for Arable Crops, and from the Thünen Institute, which conducts research in the fields of forestry, fisheries, and rural development. Both the Julius Kühn Institute and the Thünen Institute already cooperate closely with their Israeli counterpart institutions, including the Volcani Centre. Other topics which are important for us are food quality and food safety, as well as animal health and animal disease control. All these topics have already been mentioned, and we also recognize great potential for joint research and innovative activities. We are also joined today by staff from the German Ministry of Research and from my directorate. They will be following our discussions with interest and collecting new inspirations for further joint projects. I would be happy to see further opportunities for discussion and exchanging ideas arise between our ministries and research institutes following today's workshop. I hope that the successful cooperation in agricultural research between Germany and Israel will continue, and that in the near future, we will put the Intergovernmental Agreement of 2012 into practice, focusing on relevant topics from the year 2020. I hope this will be a lively workshop which delivers new findings and great potential to further innovative ideas. And I would like to express my particular thanks to the Helmholtz Association for their initiative in organizing this workshop. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Professor Ottmar Wiesler, President of the Helmholtz Association. Please.
Well, distinguished guests, dear colleagues, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to this exciting joint conference on behalf of the Helmholtz Association. In this activity, we can build on a very special and long-standing relationship between Israeli and German scientists, which has been going on over decades. In our special case, the Helmholtz Association, we have supported long-standing interactions in areas such as biomedical research, with the first, I think, dating back to the 70s, in Earth, environment and climate, the topic of today, air and space and transportation, energy research, or information technologies and information processing. Only during the last couple of years, we have considerably expanded some of these initiatives. We have established new joint research schools, set up 3 international Helmholtz laboratories in Israel, and of course decided to open an office in Tel Aviv back in 2018. All of this because we feel, for us, Israel is a very special and very powerful partner in research and innovation, highly complementary in many of our research activities. Now, in the area of today's workshop, that is agriculture and nutrition, we can certainly build on the agreement to governments back in 2012. And I'm very glad to learn that we will renew this bilateral agreement with our joint sort of activity here today. And I very much endorse and look forward to the upcoming collaboration between the Volcani Centre and the colleagues from Jülich and Leipzig on the Helmholtz side. Now, today we are all very much affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, but once this pandemic is successfully mastered, climate change will return, and probably most important task ahead of us. And for mastering the many challenges of climate change, this new cooperation between Volcani, the Helmholtz Centres and additional partners can play a really important contribution. The partners are highly complementary and I think provide all the basis for an ideal sort of new path for cooperation. Volcani, with all its expertise in climate change and agriculture, and all the know-how in technology development on one side. The center in Jülich, with all the expertise in information processing, supercomputing, in bioeconomy and in cutting-edge energy research, as well as the colleagues in Leipzig, who are one of the leading centers in environmental research, focusing on issues such as sustainable ecosystems, water resources, and of course, the interplay between humans and their environment. And I think this combination promises to promote a real new era in cooperation between our institutions in this exciting future research field. I think it's a good idea to establish potential collaborations in the setting of meetings and workshops to define potential fields for this future interaction. And I do hope, of course, very much that this activity will also exchange and cooperations between junior scientists in particular, which are a very important sort of group of colleagues to promote this new relationship. I would like to thank both governments, first of all, for providing the basis and the framework for the cooperation. I would very much like to acknowledge the scientists from Volcani, but also from the centers in Jülich and Leipzig, because they will make this happen in the end. But let me also thank Hagit Schwimmer and Andrea Fram, who have put a lot of effort into sort of establishing this workshop, but also encouraging the scientists to enter into cooperations. With this, I would like to wish you all the best, and I'm very much looking forward to exciting research results in this highly relevant area for both of our countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Wissler. Our next speaker is Professor Eli Feinerman, the head of the Agriculture Research Organization. Please.
Honorable ministers and ambassadors, distinguished participants, I would like to devote my 5 minutes to introduce to you the bride, namely Volcani Institute. Volcani is an agricultural research organization of Israel. It was established 100 years ago, and it is a research arm of the Ministry of Agriculture. It is also known as Volcani Centre, named after its founder, Professor Eliezer Volcani. Volcani is the largest, oldest, and leading agricultural research institute in Israel. We have 3 campuses. The main one located in Rishon LeZion, in the center of the country, not far from Tel Aviv. We have 1 campus in the north, not far from Haifa, which focuses on sustainable agriculture and healthy food, and 1 campus in the south, located not far from Beersheba, which is focusing on agriculture on the edge of the desert. We have close relationships, working relationships, with the Center of Mariculture or Aquaculture Center in Eilat, located on the shore of the Red Sea, which is in the process of joining Volcani. We have 200 scientists, researchers. Each one of them is a leader. Each one of them is a leader of a scientific team. Each team is composed of research assistants, graduate students, PhD and master students from universities all over Israel, and from postdocs, most of them from abroad. Volcani is composed of 6 research institutes: soil, water and environmental sciences, plant sciences, plant protection, post-harvest and food sciences, animal sciences, and agricultural engineering. At any given time, we have about 600 to 700 target-oriented studies that are being conducted here. And all this wide range of studies cover almost everything that one can imagine in the fields of agriculture and environment and resources, agriculture and food, agriculture and health, agriculture and industry, agriculture and international relations. One comment about research: Israel is actually a good natural laboratory for agricultural research. It is very diverse, very small country, but very diverse, different soil types, different water types, weather condition, different landscape within close proximity. And the research that we conducted here in the diverse region of our small country is suitable for farmers all over the globe. We have a wide scale of research from drones and satellites in the space till the tip of the root of a wheat. We cover really a very, very wide range, and from a molecular level to the one cell, one gene, to the whole plant, the whole cow, the whole animal, the whole region, the whole country. Beyond research, I would like to present to you, we have unit for science-oriented use. High school students and their teachers are educated here, study agricultural research, topics. The Israeli Gene Bank is located in Volcani, and we have technology transfer, very active technology transfer unit called Kidum. I strongly believe that collaboration between our two institutions is very, very promising, and the fruits of our cooperation will be of great value, not only for Germany and Israel, but for billions of citizens, of people all over the globe. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Feinerman. I would like to say warm welcome to Eric Zimmerman, the new GIF director, whom I haven't mentioned in the beginning. We're very honored to have you here as our guest. Thank you. And thank you to all the speakers. It's very exciting to hear everybody. But next up is our keynote lecture by Professor Ulrich Schur, who is going to talk about quantitative approaches to improvements of crop and agricultural systems for a changing climate. Please, Professor Schur.
Thank you very much, and welcome, distinguished guests. Oops, let's go here. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you today about quantitative approaches to improve crop and agricultural systems in a changing climate, which is definitely a very important topic, which we can also move on in the future together with the Volcani Centre. I don't think I have to go into extremely details with the challenges of agriculture in the 21st century, because many of the speakers before have already mentioned many of them. Therefore, I just want to shortly summarize the great challenges which we have ahead of us. On the one hand, we have to look at the environment. We see more and more weather extremes and climate extremes which are affecting crops. We have the water use and the contamination of water bodies, which are very important, agriculture is a very important participant in. And we see a strong decline in biodiversity, which also is affecting agriculture and which agriculture is also a reason for. At the same time, we see a very much increasing demand in food and in non-food demands. At the same time, for both, for food and non-food demand, we want to have increased quality and increased diversity. And not to forget food waste and the loss of food which we have after the production has taken place. All of these are topics which are obviously very good interactions possible together with Israel and with the Volcani Centre. All of them, however, ask for an integrated systematic approach, because there is no single solution which is sufficient, but we need to integrate and have significant impact. We need to have integrated land use management, and we have to optimize the entire food, feed, non-food system together with the water energy agri-nexus. And this is asking for a circular agri and bioeconomy as a central element in what we use, say, in the European level on a Green Deal. So these are the challenges which we have ahead of us. But we have to talk about solutions, about options which we have. And obviously, the traditional activities towards breeding and crop management are towards yield and quality to improve the potential and actual yield and quality of crops. At the same time, we have to work on the inputs. We have to reduce fertilizers and chemicals and water input into the agricultural systems through management and through different measures which we can build on. For all these, we need to have quantitative data, quantitative and innovative data and solutions which are delivering into breeding and management. And there are mainly three different areas where we use them. One is to understand the systems, to understand the crops and to understand the agricultural systems. The second, to design them in a new and proper way. And last but not least, to manage the entire systems in order to achieve, on the one hand, yield and on quality, and on the other hand, to reduce the impact on the environment. And obviously, the task which is given to me today to talk to you in the keynote about quantitative data, I can only scratch the surface of options which are there. And therefore, I have to give you some examples. And the first example on the understanding where we see very important improvements in the past is about crop functioning under dynamic conditions of global change. And the example which I want to use here is root performance, which is very important because the root is the organ of the plant which is taking up water and nutrients and therefore determines a lot of the resource use efficiency. We have, in order to achieve these improvements, we have to, on the one hand, develop and apply unique technology. And both Germany and Israel are have very great history in this. We then have to quantify and model the crop performance in specific contexts, and I'll give you some examples on this later on. And secondly, then continue towards testing genotypes at future climates, in stressful climates, and then also putting them into genetic markers and idiotypes. And then we have to pass over these activities and these results to breeding programs. In Germany, this is often breeding companies, but also breeding projects in general. So to give you an example on the technology, we have developed in the past unique tomographic technologies for root analysis in situ. The root is the part of the plant which is in the soil, therefore we can't see it. And therefore we use two technologies and further improved technologies which you usually have experience in medicine: the magnetic resonance imaging and positron emission tomography. These two technologies give us the opportunity to study the root in situ, which means in the soil, with respect to their structure, as well as with their function with respect to carbon transport. The combination of both gives us a 3D trait co-registration, which allows to generate new opportunities for breeders to develop new traits. This results in things like this, which you see here. This is a time frame of roughly 2 hours, where we can see how carbon actually flows into root systems of the same specimen at 3 different days during the development: 6 days, 13 days, and 20 days. So this non-invasive technology for the first time gives us the opportunity to learn what actually happens below ground, which is extremely important for the response of plants to the environment and how the plants take up nutrients and water from the environment. We then have to test and understand how systems work in the field. There also we have specific facilities which we use quite nicely at the moment for testing many different genotypes, because many different genotypes are needed for breeding. And we are putting this in the context of a CO2 concentration in the field. So we mimic the future CO2 concentration in the field using our breed phase facility. This is also linked to a state-of-the-art field phenotyping devices, which you can see here as well. This is a kind of 3D scanner, which gives us very detailed information about yield, photosynthetic traits, water relations, structural traits, but also about insects and pests at future CO2 concentrations in the field in Germany. We can then put this into the next steps by using agrorobotics. And we have recently formed, with the funding of the German Science Foundation, an excellence cluster in agrorobotics, where we combine our quantification on phenotypes and environment from the level of single plants up to the level of the satellites and global, with robotics, sensing, and machine learning to get quantitative data out of this data. But this is not enough. We have to combine it with analysis at multi-scales about economic, ecological, and social impact of these new technologies in order to be able to build this into a bigger context and to generate impact in the real world. We built this now into a whole digital farming landscape also in collaboration with colleagues from the BML, in collaboration with 5G technologies, artificial intelligence, and data sciences. So many of these new technologies have direct implications for the activities which we do in agriculture. In the next step, we go beyond the German level, and I want to shortly mention here the emphasis S3 project which we have, where at the moment we are building a pan-European plant phenotyping research infrastructure. This addresses controlled environments, intensive and lean field environments, modeling and data and computational services which are provided with this research infrastructure. We have in the decision body at the moment 12 different governments from Europe, and we are also happy that we have additional countries, including Israel and the Volcani Centre, associated to this European research infrastructure. We then have to design how things are developing. And an important topic for that, obviously, is to use biodiversity for climate adaptation, because many of the natural plants or the wild plants have opportunities to work on different climates. And herefore, we use bioinformatics to implement new crop traits. We identify and use heritable properties of wild species, for example, tomatoes, and this has also very strong interaction there with Israel. We then do sequencing, and we did the first nanopore sequencing with new technology for tomatoes in plants and combine this with phenotyping technologies. And by doing this, we can generate a plant genetic analysis framework, which allows us to improve crop resistance in future climates. This is design opportunities which we have to use also in the future. Again, here we have an excellence cluster, which is also following along that line of design, where we use biodiversity to crop traits for crop development, primary production, metabolism, but also integrate a microbiome in the virome of the soil, which is a very important part of the overall performance in the environment. Combining with synthetic biology and theoretical biology, this gives new opportunities to design crops from scratch to the future developments. We also have to think about non-food applications, and therefore we utilize renewable carbon sources for value-added products. We can use diverse feedstocks and residues, and we have to use them in order to make more efficient renewable products. We build modular, hybrid, and biotechnology processes from biotransformation, enzyme cascades, and chemical synthesis, and we will also have some examples on this later on, in order to produce low footprint and environmentally friendly products. This is also a very important part of our bioeconomy efforts. And last but not least, we also have to manage the entire agrobiogeo-systems. We have to quantify the environmental impact, the control and the feedback loops which are there in the environment in order to run the biogeosystems in a proper way. We have to develop and integrate multi-scale observation simulation platforms, where we are already extremely active in doing this in the field, and to fundamentally understand biochemical processes across scales from small field parts to the globe. This will give us the opportunity to target ecosystem functions to reduce anthropogenic impact and to design sustainable management of crop protection systems in collaboration with our colleagues in Israel and in Germany. Again, here we have S3 project, which is running a long-term ecosystem research, the LTER, where the mission is to track and understand the effects of change on socioeconomic systems, including agriculture, and the feedback to environment and society. This will also provide recommendations and support for solving current and future environmental problems by networking, research and development, and infrastructure. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that I could use the last 15 minutes to give you a short overview of what kind of quantitative approaches are there to improve crops and agricultural systems in the changing climate, and how many links there are to the work between here, what we do in Germany, with the colleagues in Israel, specifically with the Volcani Centre. I'm looking forward for the implementation of our MOU in the future and close collaboration. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Shaw. Indeed, really exciting. So now we're moving to the next part of the program. I'm very happy to introduce you the 3 research centers who will actually join forces and kick off the bilateral research cooperation. From Helmholtz in Germany, we have the research center FZ Jülich, the UFZ Helmholtz Centre for Environmental Research, and from Israel, Volcani Centre, the Agriculture Research Organization. So please welcome our first speaker, Professor Wolfgang Marquardt, the Vice President of the Helmholtz Association, Chairman of the Board of Directors, FZ Jülich, please.
It's my pleasure to be part of today's meeting to revive the collaboration plans of Helmholtz and Volcani Centre. A very warm welcome on behalf of the leadership of Forschungszentrum Jülich. This joint undertaking between Helmholtz and Volcani Centre enjoys our strongest attention. We are all committed to make this effort a success. The transition from a fossil-based to a bio-based economy, while accounted for the constrained resources of our planet and continuing to produce sufficient food for a growing world population in changing climate, is the key challenge for our and future generations. Forschungszentrum Jülich has therefore identified bioeconomy as one of its strategic research areas. With its interdisciplinary research on biological systems and biogeosystems, our scientists make important contributions to the scientific foundation for a sustainable bioeconomy and to the translation of research results into practice. Our research covers the sustainable production of food, of biological energy carriers, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, and materials by plant and microbial processes or principles. It aims at the sustainable use of natural resources, in particular of soil and water, and it emphasizes the quantitative analysis and optimization of circular material and energy flows. The Plant Sciences Institute develops sustainable solutions utilizing plants and plant biomass as raw materials, in particular, innovative use and production concepts, as well as state-of-the-art sensing and automation technologies from the laboratory to the field, ground-based and airborne, are under investigation. The trans and multidisciplinary research on resource utilization, efficiency and sustainability has always been strongly relying on alliances with diverse scientific partner institutions, both locally and internationally. The Agrosphere Institute focuses on the development of management and adaptation strategies to cope with climate and land use changes. The development of these strategies is, however, hampered by our limited ability to predict states and fluxes in terrestrial systems at scales which are relevant for land use management. This scientific and technical challenge constitutes the main target of the research activities of the Institute. The sustainable production of crops and raw biomass is a cornerstone of future bio-based economy, and it is an overarching and common theme that unifies the scientific activities at Forschungszentrum Jülich and Volcani Centre. Discovery-oriented research and the development of technologies in plant sciences, agrogeosciences, and biotechnology link science and engineering with digitalization in both institutions. The topics selected for collaborative research work and agreed on in the Memorandum of Understanding between Forschungszentrum Jülich and Volcani Centre are improving water and nutrient efficiencies in agricultural systems, the sustainable use of water and soil resources, crop improvement, crop protection and phenotyping in a dynamic environmental change. These topics set the stage for the scientists at both of our institutions to join efforts in order to achieve new insights and generate new understanding which lead to innovative technological breakthroughs. The exploitation of scientific progress for economic, ecological, and societal innovation is key to overcome the societal challenges ahead of us. I wish this endeavor all the best and a bright future, and the scientists involved success and fun in their collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Marquardt. We will continue with Professor Georg Teutsch, Scientific Director of the Helmholtz Center for Environmental Research. Please, Professor Teutsch.
Good afternoon. My name is Georg Teutsch. I'm the Scientific Director of the UFZ, the Helmholtz Center for Environmental Research here in Leipzig, Germany. And it is my pleasure to express our interest in intensifying the collaboration with our friends from the Volcani Centre in Israel in the field of agriculture innovation and adaptation to climate change, the subject of today's workshop. Let me be more specific. There is no doubt in the scientific community and throughout most of the reasonable people worldwide that climate change is taking place at an increasing rate or increasing pace, affecting all aspects of our lives already today. Even in places which are supposedly spared from dramatic changes like Germany, we could see and feel already dramatic changes like the number of extreme events, heat, droughts and storms, heavy rains, like in 2018, 2019 and 2020 again. We are expecting that the irrigated land in Germany will increase from less than 3% today to more than 80% in about 30 to 50 years. And this will, of course, dramatically change the agro-system and also the water management, in other words, the water system, the water cycle. Consequently, we are interested to work together with scientists from a country which had overcome the problem of scarcity, water scarcity in various sectors already some decades ago. The UFZ has world-class scientific expertise in the field of hydrology with the ability to produce robust future scenarios of water availability and subsequent impacts from local to regional and even global scale. This sets the stage for a series of exciting collaborations which will be presented today in the field of water movement and water management in soils and under semi-arid and arid conditions by Professor Vogel. It sets the stage for innovative sensor technologies and monitoring in all fields related to soil and land coverage. This is not an extra presentation, but an important subject in the UFZ. And with respect to sustainable solutions for the energy transformation, we need also to meet the mitigation targets set for 2050. That is, we are interested, and this is the consequence, in the valorization of agricultural waste streams for the production of fuels and chemicals by microbial and electrochemical conversion. And this subject is presented by Professor Harnisch in the workshop today as well. I do wish the participants fruitful discussions and good productivity and look forward to the outcome of this workshop. Thank you very much and have a good day.
Thank you. We're also looking forward to see the outcomes of this workshop. Our next speaker is Professor Vini Alstein, Project Coordinator from Volcani Centre. Please.
Thank you very much, Hagit, and thanks very much to our colleagues from ULICH and UFZ for the effort to establish the collaboration, which we are mostly happy and enthusiastic to carry out together. Agricultural innovation and adaptation to climate change was chosen as the area for collaboration based on the global importance and the large volume of research that is being carried out in both Helmholtz institutes as well as at Volcani. Volcani, or ARO, Agricultural Research Organization, carries out over 120 projects on the effect of climate changes and adaptation to climate change of different crops and the effect on the environment. As Professor Feinerman indicated, Israel is a natural laboratory because of the different climatic regions, soils, precipitation, etc., which enables growth of a large variety of crops under varying conditions. Nearly 60% of Israeli land is considered arid or semi-arid, so there is no wonder that we put a lot of emphasis to study those topics. In the course of the correspondence and discussions that we had with ULICH and UFZ, we came up with 6 areas which can serve as a basis for collaboration. Sustainable use of water and soil resources, improving water and nutrient efficiencies in agricultural systems, crop improvement, valorization of agricultural waste streams, phenotyping in dynamic environmental changes, and crop protection. In the next few slides, I will cover those topics and will highlight some of the projects that are being carried out with respect to those areas of research. 2 of those topics will be covered by other colleagues from the Volcani. The first 2 topics on sustainable use of water and soil resources and improving water and nutrient efficiencies in agricultural systems is the main research topic of the Institute of Soil, Water and Environmental Sciences, which focuses on environmental and issues, physics and irrigation, as well as soil chemistry and plant nutrition. Research topics that are being carried out under, research projects under those 2 topics will be presented by Dr. Alon Bengal from this institute, who works in the southern branch of Volcani, the Gilat Center, that focuses on agriculture at the edge of the desert. The second topic, crop improvement, is the focus of the studies in the Institute of Plant Sciences and a presentation on tolerance to abiotic stress, high temperatures, drought, and high salinity of various crops will be introduced by Dr. Ilan Levin, the former head of this institute. Valorization of agricultural waste stream is the main topic of a model farm that has been established a few years ago in the northern branch of Volcani, Neveya Research Centre, that focuses on sustainable agriculture. Within this model farm, a laboratory that deals with waste to resource issues has been established, and the laboratory focuses on recovery of valuable resources from agricultural waste while minimizing emission of carbon. There are different topics and research projects that are studied in this lab. Some examples are conversion of waste to energy, conversion of waste to nutrients, conversion of waste to different materials, where waste sources are sewage, sludge, farm animal waste, food waste, agricultural waste, plastic, etc. And the products that are obtained on top of energy are fertilizers, biochar, animal feed, herbicides, antifungal compounds, etc., etc. Phenotyping in dynamic environmental changes is the focus of the Institute of Agricultural Engineering, where scientists focus on studies in the fields of sensing, robotics, information and mechanization, as well as environmental engineering. There are different approaches that are being used for phenotyping, such as spatial epidemiology, drone and satellite imaging, spectral reflectance in the visible and near infrared, spectral analysis and thermal images, artificial intelligence assisted visual phenotyping, etc., etc. And there are projects which focus on development of optical systems and algorithms for improved resolutions of the images obtained by the above approaches. The applications of the approaches that are being used are monitoring crop pathogen with interaction, crop water usage, early detection of abiotic stress and abiotic resilience, monitoring pathogen infestation, and this is to mention just a few. Last but not least is the crop protection topic, which is the focus of the Institute of Plant Protection, where entomologists, nematologists, chemists, plant pathologists, and weed research scientists focus on development of approaches and compounds to reduce the use of toxic pesticides and trying to find natural compounds and environment-friendly compounds that can eliminate the use of toxic pesticides. Volcani is a very special research institute, and Professor Feinerman mentioned it. The studies span all the way from basic to applied research. We carry out a lot of multidisciplinary research projects. We integrate cut-edge technologies, and we carry out a lot of collaborations with the academia, nationally and internationally, with regional countries. And not less important is the collaboration with extension services, R&D regional centers, and farmers, which enable us to get information on emerging problems in agriculture and environment that needs to be solved. We welcome warmly and enthusiastically the forthcoming collaboration with ULICH and UFZ. And we envision that the collaboration will be synergistic and fruitful, and will result in innovative solutions, technologies, protocols, and will help to cope with climate changes, which will be of great benefit to Germany, Israel, and could be scaled up worldwide. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Alstein, also Professor Deutsch and Professor Marquardt. Now it's the time to dive deeper into the research topics. So please, this is the time for you, the researchers in the audience, to listen very carefully to the speakers and to think how to collaborate. Maybe you have a joint interest or a complementary expertise. Maybe joining forces can lead to a very fruitful and interesting synergy, so think about it while listening. So, our first speaker in the expert panel is Professor Falk Harnisch from the UFZ Helmholtz Center for Environmental Research with the title of Valorization of Agricultural Waste Streams for the Production of Fuels and Chemicals by Microbial and Electrochemical Conversion. Please, Professor Harnisch.
Dear Excellencies, dear colleagues, I'm very happy now to be the first speaker on this very excellent panel, and I'm happy to represent the Helmholtz Center of Environmental Research, UFZ, and I would like to give you some examples how we want to mitigate climate change by developing new technologies in the realm of biotechnology, but with this very special spark here because we want also to introduce electrochemical technologies. So, and I will give you two examples here that are following one line, but I want to stress here that this is just to emphasize our overall capabilities we have here, and there are many more interesting things we would like to go deeper with you after this workshop. So what is the status quo that we have when we talk about biorefineries? We have a strong competition of fuel and chemical production with the production of food and feed. we have a limited product portfolio, meaning that only very few products that are usually made petrochemically are nowadays produced from biomass. And this is a very special thing that I think should be addressed, is we have a quite limited connection or linking between the renewable energy sector and the sector of just bio-based production. And all this can be changed, from my perspective, by interlinking the renewable electric energy sector and the utilization of biomass for production of chemicals and fuels by so-called electro-biorefineries. And without going too much into detail here, is meaning that we use electric energy to drive biological reactions, or that we can extract electric energy from bio-based compounds, especially from waste. And you see here a picture of several linkages that can be created between these two realms. And I want to give you two examples here. One is without electrochemistry, the other one is with electrochemistry. And these are, is very exemplary work that we here do at the Helmholtz Centre for Environmental Research, the U of Z. And first, I want to talk about new anaerobic fermentation technologies that are located here in our process line. And I think all of you know what biogas production is. This means we are breaking down complex biomass by two biological processes called hydrolysis and acetogenesis into bricks or building blocks. And these are by two subsequent processes, acetogenesis and methanogenesis, microbially converted into a very interesting product, and this is methane. But however, methane is one interesting product, but maybe not the product that you want to go for. And if we inhibit methanogenesis, then we don't have the further production of methane, of course, but we have the production of so-called medium chain carboxylic acids. So this can be things like that we all know, butyric acid, so very smelly ones, but also caproic acid, or on the other side also acetic acid. So it's not very much of use, but all these acids are produced by a purely microbiological process called microbial chain elongation. And here for the biochemists is the so-called reverse beta oxidation. So, but the interesting thing is that we can use almost all complex biomasses for generating these acids. And why this is interesting from an economic point of view, you can see here, these are some of these acids, so acetic acid, butyric acid, caproic acid, caprylic acid, and some other more. And all of them have a certain value. So in here it's shown in US dollars per kilogram of biomass. And what is at the moment a little bit tricky, and this gives us a lot of interesting research questions, is how to purify this respective products. So you can see the most valuable products like caproic acid, the purification is easy, but it's not so easy to get all the biomass into this caproate. And whereas the separation of something like butyrate is hard, but it's easier to get butyrates. And we are working here on interesting processes, how to especially produce C6 and C8, meaning caproic and caprylic acid. And they are very interesting, and they have a very high value also, because they can potentially replace palm oil and other fossil resources. They can be used as energy carriers if reduced to alcohols, and as you will see in a minute, they are also very interesting platform chemicals. And this is work that you will not only find in the U of Z, but also a lot of other academia and even industry nowadays worldwide. Because this is of great interest if you have these acids, these medium chain carboxylic acids with a certain value that I gave you examples for, you can further process in very interesting products. So for the chemists, here you see some possibilities, but also for the more practical people and engineers, so it's flavoring agents, it can be fodder additive, it can be a food grain sanitizer, and it can also be converted into a surfactant and so in a biofuel. So it's a true platform chemical. And here at the U of Z, we we, meaning my colleagues here, so not me, myself, have developed a process, the so-called Capra-Ferm process. This was invented by the Helmholtz Centre for Environmental Research, UFZ, but also by the DBFZ. So it's nearby. We have the German Biomass Research Centre here, and we work with them on a local scale very, very closely together. And they found a process that allows them by continuous anaerobic fermentation to make these acids that I just spoke about, C6 and C8, from complex biomass with open microbiota, meaning no need for sterilization. You just take the waste, put it in the reactor, and then you can make the product without any further pre-treatment. And they have shown that this can be done from different feedstock, starting from dedicated crops, but also agro-industrial and municipal waste, by an intelligent process control without the addition of chemicals. The methane process that could also take place at these reactors can be inhibited, because it's a very intelligent process control. It can be different reactor types used, and this is very interesting from a personal perspective, it can be integrated into existing infrastructure like existing biogas plants. And here you can see, for example, they've used this so-called bio-waste bins that we are very popular here in Germany, and use this waste that people just throw away here in a local municipality to make this interesting chemical. And this can, for instance, now be used for make lubricants. But the acid may be not the ultimate product. And here I want to show you an opportunity where electrochemistry comes into play. And this is the second example I decided to show you now. So we have here an electrochemical upgrading. And this means we still have a renewable substrate. This is converted by a bioprocess. In this example now, it's almost the same process like the Capra-Ferm process that you have seen before. So we make from complex biomass, we make organic acids, then they are separated, and finally electrochemical upgrading to products takes place. This can be liquid or also gaseous products. And the only further energy source that we need here is renewable electric energy. So we just feed electrons or electric current. So, and a little bit more detail for the people interested in, we did this on a waste product from the ethanol industry, being corn beer. We converted more than half of the carbon into this MCCAs, into these acids. And finally, we then use an electrochemical reaction to gain a mixture of alkanes. And getting a mixture of alkanes may be not so, may sound not so interesting, but you have to be aware that this mixture of alkanes is separating itself from an aqueous process solution, and it's swimming on top here. And you can see this in a lab scale on the measuring cylinder, and it's very, very energy dense. So, and this substance that you can gain there by this combined biological and electrochemical process can be directly put into a car engine or a combustion engine in general to serve as a drop-in fuel additive. And over the whole process line, in the up to 10 liter scale, we had a carbon yield of more than 50%, meaning more than 50% of the carbon that was in very complex biomass or in waste finally ended up in the drop-in fuel. And if you prospect the cost there, very, very roughly, without any just taxes and so on, we have a cost of about $1.37 per liter. We know that is quite already high, but it's not factor 10 or so higher. And with these two examples, I hope to have a little bit risen your interest. And I want to have you the following take-home messages. We at the UFZ, we are working on the future of electro biorefineries. We are working, I didn't go into detail on this today, on the screening of feedstock, on the screening, utilization, and engineering of microbial resources. We are working also on electrochemical conversions and also electroorganic synthesis. And we are not only doing this in a small test tube, we want to bring this into a technical relevant scale. And this we do, for instance, with partners from all over the world. And we are always interested in developing new process lines. And I think this is also something where we and we meaning specifically myself, but also my colleague Sabine Kleinstäuber, who is head of the microbiology of anaerobic systems group here in the same department as I'm working in. Yeah, I would like to engage with you and find hopefully mutual interested and maybe also lines for a joint future research agenda. And I'm thanking you for your attention and will be happy to take your questions later on.
Thank you, Professor Harnisch. Great work. So our next speaker is Dr. Alon Ben-Gal from Gilat Center, from the Agriculture Research Organization. Please. With the title, Irrigation Water Quality Effect on Soils, Crops, and Research Use Efficiency. Please.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to talk a little bit about research concerning irrigation water quality. I want to give a wide perspective focusing on Israel ARO experience, interests, and strengths around it. I think that'll lead to further discussion about potential collaboration. So not all of Israel's landscape looks like this, but a lot of it does. And the whole country is actually characterized by very low rainfall, high water demand for plants and crops, and scarce water for irrigation. And in spite of that, we've been fairly successful in taking those landscapes in the desert areas and throughout the country and converting them into successful agriculture, including in the most extreme areas. There are a lot of reasons for the success for agriculture in Israel, including in these dry areas. I want to focus just on a couple of the water-related driving principles for success. One of them is intensification, modernization of agricultural systems, meaning the development and adoption of efficient water application technologies. We're mostly talking here about early and full move to pressurized, efficient sprinkler and drip irrigation technologies, and that combined with smart data-driven irrigation scheduling. But also is necessarily the establishment of reliable sources for irrigation. And that's been seen as extensive utilization of non-conventional water. And that's mostly water that's high in salts, especially recycled municipal wastewater that's being used for irrigation. That's the historical move, it's this use of very poor quality water. But recently, the water use and non-conventional water use is more about desalinated water. As Israel has moved to large-scale desalination for municipal drinking water, a lot of that water is having a lot of effects both on our freshwater quality and our recycled wastewater quality. So around half of the water we use in Israel historically is low-quality, high salinity water, characterized in the past by very high concentrations of minerals and contaminants, including salts. And the other half is what we call freshwater, which in the past hasn't been such great quality, but in the past 10, 13 years is becoming more and more influenced by desalinated water, both the freshwater and the effluent water. And all of a sudden we're dealing with water low in minerals, including salts and nutrients. So that's the background, that the issues involving management of irrigation water as a function of its quality and include, as is evident, and I'll continue a little bit on salinity, the effects of salts on soils and crops, secondary effects and costs of leaching those salts, issues surrounding recycled wastewater, long-term effects of irrigation on soils that can be the sodium, the dissolved organic matter, and other things, other contaminants, including nutrients, salts, and pathogens in the water, and what people refer to as contaminants of emerging concern, things that we're recently becoming aware of and being able to have the analytics to discover. There's issues of fertilization and plant nutrition involving interactions and competition in soils and uptake processes when we have nutrients and salts together in our water sources and our soils. and topics around the topic of and the issue of desalination, if that's brine disposal, especially when it's inland desalination of brackish water, issues of excess boron and lack of other minerals that we are used to or like to have in our irrigation water for plants, and secondary effects on the recycled wastewater as the water coming into our water treatment processes becomes much lower in salts and higher quality. We're working in the ARO, and particularly in the Institute for Soil, Water, and the Environment on all of these issues. Just a couple examples of very recent literature reviews, one by Uri Nakshon about salinity and soils and worldview. Others that I and other colleagues from the ARO have been involved with all in the last year, all published in Agricultural Water Management with different issues and aspects of dealing with water quality and irrigation and agriculture. And one that will be coming out next year that I know some of my German colleagues also are involved with, and other colleagues at the ARO, which will be a white paper about global soil salinity, and should be of great interest and value for us when it comes out next year. A little bit more about salinity. Let's go a little bit deeper about irrigation water salinity. I'm showing here a chart where we see a water balance very simple and a salt balance very simple together. As irrigators, we're mostly interested in quantifying what our transpiration and evapotranspiration needs are, and being very exact about giving those and avoiding losses other than that. When there's salts in the irrigation water though, then the water with the salts flows to the roots. The water's taken up by the roots, most of the salts aren't. The salts build up on the root surfaces and accumulate. And if we don't wash those salts out, if those salts aren't leached, and in dry areas, rainfall isn't sufficient to leach those salts, then we need to give leaching. So irrigation management becomes not only about ET demands, but about leaching requirements and how do we control the salts in the system. Now, how do we know, how do we approach the questions of how much to irrigate and how much to leach the salts? Well, the approaches are threefold. Experimental approaches with both controlled and field experiments, the modeling approaches to identify and understand mechanisms and evaluate sensitivity to factors of interest and to make predictions about how things will go under different scenarios, and applications based on often on the models to bring the science and understanding to the field and to decision makers. And when we do our best, I think we couple those with economics to really allow decisions to be made correctly. So I'm going to give examples of these very quickly. Here we see some controlled freestanding weighing drainage lysimeters. This enables us to control, isolate variables coming in, variables of irrigation water amount, irrigation water quality, and to close close water balances and solute balances, and to be able to really calculate and see the effects of different irrigation management choices or situations on crop growth and on what happens beyond the root zone. Example for bell peppers in a net house on the left, and for olives in freestanding lysimeters in the Gilad Center on the right. Those kind of tools can give us this kind of results. Here we see water production curves for two salinities, a low salinity and a higher salinity for growing bell peppers in a desert area where vegetables are grown. And this just brings home the need for leaching. We see that with the higher salinity, with the crop that's fairly sensitive, we can reach, in this case, the same yields that we reached with the low salinity water, but at a cost of using twice as much water. So half the water is going to leach the salts. We see the same kind of results when we looked at olives, a more tolerant crop, but also to be able to reach maximum yields at any given salinity, we need quite a bit of water to leach those salts. So we're interested in those salts, and we're interested in the water with the salts, and we're interested in the questions of whether that kind of leaching salts is sustainable. So we're interested on a level of looking at consequences of using the low quality water, what happens to that water and what does it carry? In this example, nitrates into the groundwater downstream from intensive agricultural area in the desert. And some other examples from colleagues of that kind of work. We're also interested in sustainability on a larger scale. In the examples of these papers on a national or a global scale, and what does it mean down the line? And today we're more and more interested in the role of desalination. Can it be leveraged to aid sustainability in irrigated agriculture and dry areas? If so, how? What are the costs? The second mode of work is modeling. I bring three examples. One by David Russo and his colleagues, where he's doing numerical stochastic modeling for managing spatial variability and getting to best management practices for use and conjunctive use of variable quality irrigation water sources. Fairly sophisticated modeling, but coming in and making real suggestions for how management should go. Shmulik Friedman and his colleagues, Gregory Kalmanarp in particular, and their work with modeling water uptake for trickle irrigation design, and work that I'm involved with with numerical and analytical mechanistic models based on soil physical properties, water and salt balance, and understood plant response functions in order to predict the response of crops under any given salinity and leaching. The last two of these have been turned into tools that go into the third aspect of how we take the science and make it applicable. The first, Shmulik's work and his model and application DDAS, which is a planning tool for optimized design and scheduling of drip irrigation systems that's downloadable and usable and has people using all over the world, both for understanding processes and for actual design of drip irrigation. And model that an application that I'm been involved with developing that we call ANSWER, a coupled agronomic economic application for decision making regarding irrigation with water as a function of its salinity, where a user can choose crops, can choose soils, and can apply real economic data, in our case for Israel, and to predict profit as a function of how much and which water and how much it costs, and it's being used as a decision or making or planning tool by farmers and planners here in Israel. So to round things up, I'd like to make a list of what I see are obvious potential topics for research collaboration between Helmholtz and the ARO Volcani, based on the same kind of concept of experimental modeling and decision support, a triangle. So the first thing would be to look at water flow and solute transport in soil crop systems. Next would be to look better understand uptake of water and solutes by plants. The transport and fate of contaminants within our soil and agricultural systems and beyond it in the Vedos zone and into water sources, whether they be groundwater or surface water. The issue of plant nutrition and nutrient management as a function of water source and soil salinity, it's wide open and a lot needs to be learned. A little more specifically would be improving macroscopic water uptake models for cases with combined water and salinity stress, and uptake in plant nutrition, nutrient and water uptake in plant nutrition is a function of irrigation water quality, where we would look at nutrient salt interactions. I think these are all things that we could bring symbiotic skills and interests and tools and work on together. So in the name of ARO Volcani, particularly the Institute of Soil, Water, and Environmental Sciences, and the southern campus of Volcani, the Innovate Research Center where I sit, I thank you and look forward to continuing this discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ben-Gal. We'll move to Professor Jan van der Boot, but before, I would like to mention that this event is being recorded for all the people that asked, and all the presentations will be shared after, so just for you to know. And we'll go straight to Professor van der Boot from the Institute of Bio and Geoscience of Jülich. We'll speak about technologies and modeling tools for agricultural, crop, and climate adaptation research. Please.
Thank you. Dear Excellencies, dear colleagues, it's my pleasure to present to you today the technologies and modeling tools that we are developing at the Agrosphere Institute at the Forschungszentrum Jülich for agricultural, crop, and climate adaptation research. So at our institute, we can divide the research teams in three main blocks. We are developing sensors for measuring and monitoring plants, terrestrial systems, and environmental processes at different scales. We are developing experimental platforms to carry out experiments, which gives us understanding about controls on hydrological and biochemical processes in terrestrial systems. And both the data we obtain with sensors and the insights we obtain from experiments can help us to improve models and simulation tools with which we can predict plant and terrestrial systems from local to continental scales. So a number of keywords. We are using technology to develop sensors and experimental platforms that give us or provide us with data and insights which can help us to improve process models. This helps us to give more understanding and insight on the one hand side, and on the other hand side, it can improve our knowledge, or it can lead to a knowledge-based management. So coming to the technologies, the first set are imaging methods that we use for non-invasive monitoring of soil processes at different scales. One example is the magnetic resonance imaging method that we developed together with colleagues from Israel to monitor the accumulation of sodium around roots, which is an important phenomena or process occurring in saline soils and occurring in saline soils irrigated with saline water. So we were among the first to show how you can monitor basically sodium accumulation in roots using or around roots using MRI system. Another device that was actually developed by our engineering department in Jülich is a spectral induced polarization system, which we use for imaging root activities and accumulation of nutrients and salts around the roots, and also for dynamic water content monitoring of date palm trees. This is again a project together with colleagues from Israel, where we are applying this technology for a specific agricultural problem. Another instrument that we developed is a mobile low-field MRI system, which we can use to obtain detailed information about soil moisture distributions in bare and dry soils. And this is important to improve models that predict evaporation losses from soils. And it provides us information non-invasively about the water content profile in the first few millimeters of a soil profile. Finally, we are also developing and improving methods and interpretation methods so that we can improve the interpretation of measurements obtained with geophysical methods that we can use for rapid soil mapping and for monitoring soil processes non-invasively at the field scale. The Agrosphere Institute is also coordinating a network of terrestrial observatories. It's called Terreno, and it's an initiative funded by the Helmholtz Association. And 4 research centers, Helmholtz Research Centres, are operating these terrestrial observatories in which we monitor the different components of the terrestrial system, from the groundwater, the soil, the vegetation into the atmosphere. One component of this network is our soil canalizimeter network, where we installed around 120 undisturbed soil monoliths across Germany to investigate in more detail and exactly water fluxes and solute fluxes in the soil atmosphere system. We are developing wireless sensor networks that we can directly connect with servers and databases to obtain a real-time monitoring of the terrestrial system. Finally, we are further developing isotopic analytic and sensing platforms that can be deployed outside in the field and which deliver direct information about critical biochemical and water fluxes in the field. On the experimental platforms, we are currently constructing an agricultural food production simulator in which we can monitor under controlled conditions the development of a crop over the entire cropping cycle. This means that we are constructing large plant chambers that are connected to undisturbed lysimeters so that plant growth is not limited or impeded by the limited size of the system. The systems are fully controlled. We can control temperature, humidity, lighting, and they are fully airtight so that we can also monitor isotope fluxes in these systems, which help us to disentangle different biochemical and water fluxes. This experimental platform will give us information that we can use to develop and further parameterize so-called functional structural plant models that we are using and developing, and that we can use then to optimize soil, water, and crop management in a changing climate. So the simulation models that we are developing go from detailed functional structural plant models, which couple the three-dimensional structure of the plant with internal flow and transport processes in the plant, so that the function of these organs and the function of the structure of the plant can be analyzed in diverse environments. So we can use this model then to generate virtual realities of plant development, which can then be used to improve crop and land surface models that allow predictions of vegetation development and functioning in changing environmental conditions and climate conditions. At the larger scale, we are developing and running in Jülich an entire terrestrial system model, or an holistic terrestrial system model, the TERSIS MP model, which simulates the terrestrial system from the bedrock over the groundwater, the soil, the vegetation into the atmosphere in a fully coupled way. The system is implemented on the supercomputing infrastructure in Jülich, and we can simulate the system from the catchment scale up to the continental scale with high spatial resolution. So these kind of models can be used to evaluate and investigate feedbacks between, for instance, agricultural water use and weather conditions. So the left side shows you the impact of groundwater tables and that are influenced by agricultural water use, and the air temperature and duration of heat waves during summer in future for future climate scenarios. The right side shows you the impact, or shows that these models can also be used to evaluate the impact of irrigation at certain locations on the continent on the weather and precipitation at other locations in the continent. So this is because the feedbacks in between processes in groundwater, soil, and atmosphere are fully accounted for and described. Finally, we are using these models to make forecasts of crop and soil water states for nutrient and water management. So we are developing simulation-based products for weather and climate resilient agriculture. And we do so by combining operational weather forecasts with our environmental sensor data into the terrestrial system models and run them and provide so that they can provide simulation-based products that can be used for agricultural management. So this was my last slide, and I would like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Professor Hans-Jürg Vogel from the UFZ Helmholtz Centre for Environmental Research. We will talk about modeling water movement in soils under arid and semi-arid conditions.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. I think it's obvious to everybody here in this round that soils are of critical importance for agriculture because they store the water and the nutrients which are just missing when water is short. Well, I don't want to be that bold to try to explain colleagues from Israel what are the critical issues when modeling water dynamics under dry conditions. But still, I think we can have a few areas of research where we can very nicely cooperate for the benefit of all of us. And I would like to make 2 or 3 points along these lines here. So what you see here in this image is an illustration that many scales are involved when we're talking about water in soils. So from the local root scale or the pore scale to the soil profiles up to the landscape. Well, the line you can see here just illustrates that whatever we are measuring in soil water relations, it depends on which scale we are looking. There are 2 critical scales, I guess. One is the scale of soil profile. This is the scale which is experienced by plants and which is important for agricultural management. And here the water fluxes are mainly vertical. This is why we can focus on the soil profile. Since the gradients are pointing either downwards or upwards, when it's dry, it's rather upwards. And here the critical question is, how does the irrigated or precipitation water is distributed in the soil? Is it stored for the usage of plants? Is it lost through surface runoff? Or it is flowing rapidly downwards below the root zones? That's critical for agricultural management. The other scale which is important in other respect is the landscape scale, and the question, how are soils with different hydraulic properties distributed in the landscape? This is important for the question, how is the interactions between the land surface and the atmosphere, where is surface runoff happening, and where groundwater recharge. This depends on how the soils are distributed in the landscape. Also the dynamics of the discharge of the surface waters, of course. Okay, so let's first jump on the scale of soil profiles and what the state of the art here. We do understand the physics of water in porous medium quite well, and we have two nice models describing water flow in soil. So we can describe infiltration very nicely, but there is always a but. This comes along with a number of assumptions which are not necessarily met when we look at infiltration in dry soils, for example. So one assumption is that we have a complete or at least constant wettability of internal surfaces. And this is especially critical when organic or soils with organic matter is drying out, or if we irrigate with wastewater, as we just heard from Aran Bengal. It's still 33% in Israel, and it's probably coming in Germany. And this water contain organic molecules which switch to hydrophobic when it's getting dry. And this produces quite strange phenomena in water dynamics. The other assumption is that water content and capillary forces are always nicely in equilibrium. And this is also only the case if the processes are very slow, and I mean very, very slow. If we have a heavy rainfall on a dry soil, water is not distributing in the soil according to some energetic minimum, but it goes where it can easily go to. And this produces also situations where our classical concepts do not really apply. So, well, yeah, this is typically not fulfilled when water infiltrates dry soil. And I have one illustration for you, an experiment in the lab, because this is difficult to observe in real soil. This is infiltration into a rather homogeneous material. I can show it again, where the middle horizon both has low capillary forces because it's coarse textured, and maybe also problems with wettability. This produces this finger-like flow where the soil is circumvented more or less, and rapidly the water is going down to deeper horizons. Okay, so we made quite a lot of advances during the last, let's say, 1 or 2 decades in looking how water behaves in soil at the pore scale. And what you see here is an aggregate, and we look inside these aggregates using X-ray tomography. And you see here the beauty of the pore space, different pore sizes from green, small, to red, large. And we can actually analyze this today in a nicely quantitative way. If it's saturated with water, we can either simulate how it's drying, or rather, or already we can measure it directly with these X-ray systems. And it was already mentioned by Ulrich Schur and Jan van der Borg that these techniques can be used to image the 3D root systems as well. But we are mainly focusing on the soil structure, which is also a structure of pores and solid, which is critical for all the water storage and water movement, and which actually can be changed by agricultural management. This is where we get a handle on how soils behave in dry situations. Okay, but how is this, what are the implications at the scale of a soil profile? And this was already mentioned by Jan. We have our lysimeter network SoilCan all across the Helmholtz centers. Here again, the map of the different sites. This is really a unique set of data from 140 lysimeters. I think it's, well, anyway, there's a lot of. And we have 13 different soils here, which are moved around from between the different locations and monitored more than 10 years. This gives a huge data set, which is absolutely great to really develop further our models also under extreme situations. And just to give you a glimpse of the data coming out of that one, here you see water content and water potential as monitored during 1 year, 2013. In the right panel, here you see the precipitation pattern, which was still pretty wet in Germany. In the year 2018, we had from March to September almost zero, just to see the difference. The bad news is that what we typically assume here, this unique curve, is not at all met, but we have a lot of points not lying really on a straight line. But the good news is that there is a pattern in the data which we can understand and which we can use to improve our models towards dynamic wettability, hysteresis, and things like that. And here the green and the red trajectory is the dynamics after heavy rainfall following a dry period. This is what I meant before by that these situations are difficult for our classical model approaches to be coped with. Okay, so what about last two slides for the landscape scale? Maybe you have seen the UFZ drought monitor, which is online since quite a while and which shows from day to day the actual situation all across Germany. Here you see the water deficit with respect to percentage of usable field capacity. And this was the situation for 1 week from now for soil profile 1 to the first 1.8 meters. And you see these red colors all over the place during the last 3 years. To come up with such predictions, this needs soil information, and this is still not optimal at the moment. And we are working on how to better characterize the distribution of soils in the landscape. And the approach we are following here is to use data from remote sensing, available soil data, data from parent material of soil formation, different qualities of data which are available in a spatially continuous mode, so-called proxy variables for soil formation. And we combine this with ground truth, where we have real soil data measured at different points. And these two informations are combined by advanced methods of data science, machine learning, and so on, to come up with an estimation, including uncertainties about the distribution of soil properties in the landscape. And this will finally provides us with the required parameter fields to do hydraulic modeling also at the regional scales. So the good point is that these proxy data, especially those from satellites, are steadily improving at the moment. Another good point is that also computing power to do all these calculations is steadily increasing. Well, and the bottleneck at the moment is the availability of the data. And since quite some politicians are here in this group, maybe this could be mentioned that we need better access to soil data, which actually are existing with the different federal agencies, but there is no good access from a scientific point of view. This could be improved. Well, I would like to end just with a statement that many critical issues are yet to be explored, and there are different fields. I think Alon Bengal made a nice list of things where we could collaborate in future. Thanks.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Dr. Ilan Levin from Plant Sciences Institute, Volcani Centre. We'll talk about confronting climate changes in Israel, challenges and solutions. Please, Dr. Levin.
Thank you very much. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I thank the organizers for giving me the opportunity to present the activities taking place at the Plant Sciences Institute. Although my title is rather general, I'm going to focus on some examples of what we do here. The main challenges as we see it is temperature, not only but mostly heat, drought, focusing mainly on water use efficiency, and salinity. The Institute of Plant Sciences is composed of 4 departments. I'm not going to name all of them, but each one of them is dealing with few aspects of abiotic stresses. The major solutions that we devise is introduction and breeding of high-yield, high-quality plant varieties under stress conditions, including vegetables, cereals, fruit and forest trees, development of agriculture and biotechnological technologies to cope with stress conditions, identification and utilization of genes controlling food set and food quality under stress condition to expedite breeding, and the introduction of few non-traditional tolerant crops into marginal arid lands. Maintaining crop yield under changing climate, what we do is doing the whole set of controlled versus non-controlled conditions, starting from fully controlled studies up to the field level. Michal Lieberman, a researcher in the Institute, is developing approaches to understand and improve plant response to heat stress under 4 different levels: genetic, physiological, epigenetic, and metabolomic. A group in the Institute have identified quantitative trait loci that control pollen quality under high stress. Another group is for coping with the means to improve potato skin quality under hot climates, and you can see here the different types of injuries that high temperature cause potatoes. Another interesting approach is parthenocarpic tomatoes. A group currently led by Tzachi Arazi have identified mutant parthenocarpic tomatoes and then identified the gene and devised transgenic and genome-edited tomatoes with improved fruit yield and quality under extreme temperatures. Another group in the Institute has devised a smart plant valve approach that is based on controlling stomatal aperture by modeling sugar metabolism, resulting in increased yield, 20% reduction in water loss, early flowering, cold resistant, and salt tolerance. Another group in the Institute is formulating treatments to improve the quality of cut flowers in warm climates. Another group is working on controlling soil temperature. And you can see a very nice result of an experiment. Here is a control plot, whereas here is a treated plot, and you can observe the difference. Another group in the Institute is focusing on breeding cereals for climate change. They're using different approaches, including genetic improvement of early vigor to avoid drought. You can appreciate some of the results. And what they found is that early vigor also provides better establishment capacity and with competitiveness, and also enhances plant efficiency, water use, radiation use, and fertilizers use. These are achieved while minimizing grain yield penalty. Utilizing double haploid technologies, we have established a heat-tolerant wheat variety called Benedictus 16, which was introduced to the Pope when he visited Israel. Another interesting approach is focusing on crop adaptation. A group led by Eyal Friedman found that circadian clock is very important in adapting plants to different stress conditions. He devised a phenomic approach and identifies genes that are associated or controls photosynthesis and circadian clock, and then actually tailoring them into the plant using recast approaches. As I mentioned earlier, utilizing non-traditional crops into marginal areas. One example is the argan tree, which used to be called the iron tree because it's very resilient and is used for oil extraction. And this is also an approach that we utilize. Traditional and new approaches for rain-fed field crops improvement, including crop management, no tillage, crop rotation, water use efficiency, grain quality, precision agriculture, precise fertilization, remote sensing, decision support system, which is led by David Boonfield. Another interesting group in the Institute, which can complement some of the activity presented today, is a group led by Maya Kleiman, which focuses on material engineering to elucidate plant environment interactions. Another example is breeding of new apple cultivars with low chilling requirements. This is some of the lines and genotypes developed. And finally, improving plant response to frost by chemical priming. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So thank you to all the speakers. It was really interesting. We had to have now question and answer session, but really out of time here. So what we will do is we'll just squeeze in 2 questions, and we will immediately start with Stefan Lange, please.
Thank you very much. I want to share my screen with you. Hello. Shalom and Guten Tag. My name is Stefan Lange. I'm the research director of Thünen Institute, the Federal Research Institute for Rural Areas, Fisheries and Forestries in Germany under the umbrella of our German ministry. And it's a pleasure for us to be part of this amazing workshop and to have this brief opportunity to make a concrete collaboration offer, because among the collaboration between Helmholtz Association and the Agricultural Research Organization, the Volcani Centre, one aim of this workshop is also to revitalize the intergovernmental agreement of cooperation in science, agriculture and nutrition between Israel and Germany. That's why we concretely suggest a concrete cooperation in terms of food losses and food waste reduction. Some words in terms of the background. The G20 Agricultural Ministers' Declaration addresses this topic as an important and crucial one since 2015. And Thünen Institute coordinates an initiative of food losses and food waste prevention of the G20 states since 2015. This initiative was launched at the meeting of agricultural chief scientists of G20 states, where I am one of the German delegates to this board. We run an expert platform where you can search experts and projects and search for partners in relevant research activities. We annually conduct regional workshops with respective G20 presidency countries. So for 2 years ago, we conducted such a regional workshop in Buenos Aires for South America and the Caribbean, last year in Tokyo for the Southeast Asia region, and last week we organized an online workshop for the Gulf region together with Saudi Arabia, for example. On a national basis, Thünen Institute is responsible for monitoring food loss and waste in Germany, to establish a monitoring system and to also to establish reduction measures. And one of the backgrounds and one of brilliant preconditions for such a potential collaboration is the will and between both ministries. So Julia Klöckner, our German minister, last year in their letter of congratulations to Minister Alan Schuster already mentioned the importance and the wish to cooperate in this key issue, food loss and waste, and asked for bilateral cooperation also in their meeting with the Israeli ambassador Jeremy Isacharov last year. And furthermore, Volcani Centre, one colleague from Israel, was requested by his Israeli ministry to contact us at Thünen Institute for potential collaboration in this regard in food loss and waste prevention. So we already started preliminary exchange between our Volcani Centre and Thünen Institute, and we would suggest a promising cooperation of mutual interest. So, for example, a research collaboration on national measurement and policy strategies, on developing and developing and optimizing monitoring methodologies, and to assess, to establish prevention measures and to assess them afterwards, and furthermore to facilitate and to embed this exchange, this bilateral exchange of knowledge among stakeholders and networks into a more broader, in a more international network and context. This would be our concrete suggestion to revitalize this intergovernmental agreement by launching such an cooperation between our two institutions, asking both ministries for resources for such an collaboration. We would be grateful and would come afterwards to you with this concrete proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and let's move immediately to Florian Bittner, please.
And I also have a very, very short presentation which I would like to share with you. And Oh, can you see this presentation?
Yes, we can see.
Okay. So first of all, basically, I would like to say thanks to all the speakers before who have so nicely introduced into topics that might be of interest or that presently are already of interest for the collaboration between Germany and Israel. Just to briefly explain who we are, my name is Florian Bittner. I'm the research coordinator at the Julius Kühn Institute, the Federal Research Center for Cultivated Plants. So I'm kind of a counterpart of Stefan Lange, who has talked to you before. And the Julius Kühn Institute, actually, and just I would like to give you what the idea of the Julius Kühn Institute is. We're dealing with sustainable plant production, with plant breeding, research, plant breeding, plant genetic diversity, plant production, protection, bee protection, plant health, and agrarian ecosystems. And as you can see from these points, you may realize that there are several overlaps between the Aro institutes and other institutes in Israel, which follow similar lines of research routes. And so no surprise that we have many common interests, and some of the current common interests are listed here. And I don't want to go into the details of this, just that we have a very recent project idea developed together with the Volcani Centre, and this project idea is dealing with herbicide response on major weed species and on the impact of changing climatic conditions. So just as an example of what is going on between us, the Julius Kühn Institutes, and other, in particular the Volcani Centre, other research institutes at Israel. So, and since I'm not here to talk about the Julius Kühn Institute in detail, but to ask a question, I would like to address a precise question which may not be answered here directly, but we might, let's say, add on what has been talked and discussed previously. So my point is that having in mind that so many things are overlapping, so many research foci are overlapping between us, the German research institutions, and the Israeli research institutions, I'm wondering whether it could be possible to kind of establish a platform for the mutual update of the state of knowledge. Maybe could be online, biannual or annual, or maybe even more often meetings in which the Aro, the JKI, the Thünen, and others, the Helmholtz institutes, may come together and establish a platform as kind of a solid basis for the sustainable cooperation between the German and the Israeli research institutes. So this is a point from us, and we would love to, if this idea could be discussed between both of the ministries, and maybe particularly because it could be a good idea to establish this bilateral cooperation very deeply and very well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now we came to the end of this great event. So thank you everyone for participating. We hope you enjoyed it. Thank you to our distinguished speakers and guests of honor. Thank you to the hosts, Andrea from Helmholtz Israel, Vinny from Volcani, Barbara from the German Embassy. I wish you a big success in the collaborations. I hope to see many of you, many representatives of the collaborating institutes and others in the Green Deal submissions, Horizon, and Prima submissions. If you need more information, just contact us. So have a great week, stay safe and healthy, and hopefully see you all soon in person here in Israel. Goodbye.
Bye.